Gaming Today presents Hash Considerations.
Welcome to the Cash Considerations podcast. Today is Tuesday, February 4th, and we are post-Super Bowl. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to bring everybody in, bring everybody up to speed, recap the game, the props, the stories, and everything else. We have a special guest today we're going to bring into the mix right away. And, then we got some other things on the rundown that we're going to get to, which is, I don't know, it's basketball season officially.
It's February.
It is.
Yeah.
That is Motoy Pearson. Motoy, as AB calls him. I call him Motoy. It's the wrong syllable.
Either one is fine at this point.
All right, fair enough.
I'm serious.
All right. He is at Heed These Takes. Mo, how you feeling, bro?
What's the deal? It's been a little bit chilly, right, outside? Or
Yes. It's in Vegas today, a cool 32 degrees this morning. So
they say it's going to get a little colder.
Yeah. Wind is gusting.
Like my soul.
We're settled in the studio nice and easy, though.
Yeah.
Settled in his seat over there, we have Alan Berg. AB, what's up?
Man, I want to see LeBron James this week so bad.
So
punch him right in the face.
Oh, yeah. We got to
punch him right in the
No,
face.
I seen that. I seen that.
I hate him. He's the fakest dude.
Oh,
Man.
my goodness.
I gotta stop.
You didn't like that eulogy?
Don't get me started.
No. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Save it. He's jumping in early, Mo. He's stepping in the lane a little bit early. We're going to reset that one. So the format of the show today, like I said, we're going to bring in our guest here real quick, and then we're going to talk the business and everything else. Then we're going to get to the game and recap that. And then, even against AB's thing, we got to talk about college basketball at some point.
Yeah.
No, it's time. It's February.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay now.
It's got to be done.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Without further ado, let's welcome in Adam Chernoff, who has no title, but has a lot of stuff to talk about. So he is at Adam Chernoff on Twitter, and you can find him there. He has a lot of great things to say. Adam, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning to you guys as well.
What's going on?
I feel a little bit like Kevin Hart in those YouTube videos where he's among giant NBA players in terms of the guest list that strategically around the podcast. But
We don't like modesty on this
thank you very much
show.
for bringing me on.
Oh my, that's a great analogy, and this isn't we have no guidelines, we have no restrictions, so we can,
There's no rules.
yeah, and we can
Zero
swear
rules.
and say anything you want. So that's the way to start off this thing. Kind of kissing our ass a little bit. We like that, but we know that we're full of shit as well. So.
Yeah, I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
This is Mo, by the way.
Yeah, if Matoy gets out of line, I'm gonna slap him right across the face.
He's been
on
waiting.
This show.
He's been waiting
All right.
months.
No, but honestly, you guys have been killing it with this show all season. I've really enjoyed listening, and I know a lot of other people that have too. So there's
man.
no modesty or ass kissing there, but you guys are doing a really good job.
We appreciate that a lot, and we do appreciate you listening. And now that you're in the mix, let's start this interview off with our number one hard-hitting question, asked of every guest. Adam, where are you from?
I am from a town named Kenora, Saskatchewan, which is about 2,200 people. And to put that into context, if you drove your car to Fargo, North Dakota, and aimed it north and went for about another 7.5 hours at about a 60 miles per hour clip, you would be right in the ballpark where I grew up and lived till I was about 14 or 15 years old. So from literally the middle of nowhere in every sense of the word.
Damn, was that farm? Were you on a farm?
My dad grew up on a farm.
Okay.
He moved into town in his mid-20s, early 30s. I was born in the town and grew up in the town. But essentially, I mean, we're talking about 5 or 6 streets in total. There was a crescent at the end of the town that had a few houses, but there was more people in the cemetery than there was alive in the town, just because it goes back to Goes
That's
back to the roots of so many people, but a couple generations lived there within the family.
That's an all-time line, Adam, by the way.
Yeah, that is great. Oh my goodness.
It's the truth.
So where are you now? You're in Calgary, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just south of Calgary, Alberta. Been many places along the way, but I moved here just before I went into middle school. We moved from the city just due to some family circumstances, and then left here just into high school, went back to graduate with my friends. But been a journey along the way, but I've been back here for about a year now, just south of Calgary in southern Alberta.
Okay.
Nice.
So let's get to the journey.
Sure.
Grew up sports fan, into sports, and now, I mean, if anyone follows you on Twitter, and they should, you're a numbers guy. Where did the gambling begin?
So I played every sport growing up, because when you're in a town of 2,200 people, you don't really have a choice to keep from going sane if you're a guy. So played a ton of golf, ton of baseball, a little bit of hockey as well in the winter, but played a ton of sports and had like a really good core of friends. And we ended up moving to the city in order to support my brother. And so I went from the town of 2,200 people, where I never really thought about money. We were sort of middle class, but there was never really a thought about money or business or anything. And then we got dropped into the nicest, most upscale neighborhood, living with my aunt and uncle in Calgary, Alberta. And so I went from a classroom of 14 people that I've known my entire life to a classroom of 60 people showing up in Mercedes and BMWs. And I thought Buick was a big deal. I've never seen money or wealth or anything. So I never really fit in with anyone in the city.
So you were literally the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, no, it was to an extent. Yeah, it was maybe slightly better looking than he was, but
incredible.
But yeah, it was honestly, that was it. So like I went from sports and everything at my disposal to not being able to participate in anything, because like the price in the city goes through the roof, and it's just a completely different world. So we had a TV channel, The Score, which is now an app. It used to be a TV channel in Canada on just network TV. And they started really showing a lot of stuff about poker. And so I would come home from school, nothing to do. And I got into playing a little bit about poker. And this was like 2006, 2007. And that led me into the online world. And I got into different betting forums. I realized you could sort of bet on sports, and sites like the RX and Capper's Mall and Major Wager and all those big sites that were around 14, 15 years ago, sort of got learning into what betting was from that. And that got me into probably a lot more trouble than I should have been. Turned into, no, I got into bad side of everything. And when you kind of lose your sort of core of friends, I was just sort of lost and looking for something to do, and really got into sort of the bad side of betting through school. Got some really bad situations that I somehow was sort of able to come out of without getting into any trouble, but made a lot of bad choices, and it ultimately ended up me going back to sort of graduate with my friends in grade 12, and I spent a year with my grandma in high school. But I was the one guy going back. I made the return to the small town, so it was like the comeback. And I thought I was just on like this higher level, and I was like determined to travel. And I was like the one guy that was going to leave the school and be the one guy who leaves the province and goes and travels. And it came down to like just a few days before graduation. I had no ticket. I had about $2,000. I was pushing wet wheelbarrows of cement, working in stamped concrete. I was the guy that pushed the wheelbarrows, so I was making a few dollars there. Graduated, booked the ticket one way to the Dominican Republic, had $2,000 in my pocket, and I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to make it. First time on a plane, went to the Dominican with $2,000 and figured, let's see what I can do with sports betting. And I've been going now for about 13 years since.
Wow. And you had never been there or anywhere like that before, right?
Never been on a plane, never left the country, never went on vacation, nothing. I was in Saskatchewan. I went to Alberta, which is right next door. And that was the extent of my travels. So I remember that day very well.
If you were to make a line on you going with two dimes and you're going to the Dominican Republic, kid from Canada, what would you have made the line on you lasting like a month?
I had the first month of rent paid for. I was right in
Okay.
Barbaro, so it's right next to Olympic Canada. So I had the first month of rent paid for. So I knew I was probably going to be okay for at least a month. But it was more to like prove to everyone that when I said I was going to travel, I was going to go and do it. And then, but I would say to make it past that, I was probably minus 500 to the no. I didn't think that it would last too long.
That's
But
still not that bad, actually.
We'll take those odds.
It
Yeah,
was a-
that's fine. That's all right.
I would put the line at minus 100,000 to the sort of circumstances that follow that in the next 5 to 10 years.
All right,
But
that's
how
a
things
lot.
have played out were how things have played out since has been something that I don't think I could ever replicate.
So you go to Dominican Republic, you got the money in your pocket, you make it there, and
What kind of culture shock was it for you? Like, obviously, like you moved from like, the town of 2,200 to, the actual city, but to going from Canada to the Dominican Republic, it had to be pretty wild, right?
Well, I certainly stood out. I mean, I was 18. I was just a few days out of high school. And so it was all, luckily, I ended up in a spot in Bávaro, which is in the Dominican Republic. I ended up sort of in this little town that was filled with expats. It took me a while to discover that's where I was. I remember the first night, everything I read online was like, everything's safe, but once the sun goes down, you have to be a little bit cautious. And so I went to the supermarket, and it was like 5:30, and it was in September, so I'm used to the sun setting my entire life at like 8:30, 9 p.m. Went in the supermarket at like 5:30 on the island. The sun goes down in like a matter of 5-10 minutes. So while I was in the supermarket, I came out and the sun was down, and I said, "Oh shit!" And so I had all these things in my head. So I had all these bags. I was in flip-flops and shorts. I was running back to the apartment to get there because I'm like, sun's down. I'm this 18-year-old kid in the middle of this sort of raggedy town, and I ran back to the place. And I got there, and I remember the first night I went to lie down in the bed, and a roach crawled across the bed from underneath the mattress. And I had never seen one in my life. I went running into the living room. I called my mom, and I was like, I don't know what this beetle is. What the hell's going on? She's like, grab a frying pan and just go smash it. And I mean, that was like between the bugs and like the change, and it was completely overwhelming at the time. But like really, over time, I fit in once I started to figure out exactly where I was.
That's great. That's good.
So did you just jump right in right away and start like betting, or what was the plan? So you got from the Dominican, you lasted there how long, and then you ended up where?
So I didn't realize how open betting was, and there are just shops on every single corner, and it's nothing. There's no real major infrastructure or anything. It's guys from Santo Domingo that have these outlets, and it's all just junk $5 parlay money going in, but they all operate on basically one of two different softwares. So I had no idea what I was doing in terms of betting when I look back and see what I was doing. But I was smart enough to realize that there, from one place on one corner to the other side of the street, there was usually a difference in price, or there was slow movement from one. And so I was smart enough to know that at the time Pinnacle was quite good. And I was pretty smart enough to know that BetCris was good because I saw it on the island in a couple different spots in their flagship places, which were sort of hidden under the Bank of Five-Star banner at the time. And so I could sort of see differences, and unintentionally I kind of ended up scalping my way to collecting a bit of rent money, and it was completely luck. But like I look back, it wasn't the worst strategy, but I was doing that for a couple of months until I ran into a guy at sort of the local sports bar, and there was a big karaoke night. We were like the two guys not singing, jammed in the corner because there was nowhere else to drink. And we didn't say a word to each other all night. And it got to the point where like we're 3-4 hours in, we're basically touching elbows the entire night. And so he sparked up the, what do you do for a living? And I threw up the BS story of betting for a living and sort of embellished on that. And he's like, well, that's interesting you mentioned that because I have these places in Trinidad and Tobago, and we're actually looking for someone who might know a little bit about sports betting to see if it could potentially work. And so maybe you would be potentially interested in discussing that opportunity further. And it goes to show how well I sort of embellished my story. And so over the course of the month, I was presenting myself as this potential bookmaker and ended up talking my way into this job. What I didn't think about at the time was, where is Trinidad and Tobago?
Never once occurred to think about it.
No, and so I thought it was in like the Middle East. Because I was Trinidad, and I have no idea how I jumped to that conclusion. But I ended up flying from Santo Domingo to Port of Spain in December of that year, and I arrived at what was then the Palms Private Members Club. There weren't really casinos in Trinidad, but there were these members clubs where you could sign up for a membership as a resident in Trinidad and Tobago and Port of Spain, and you could go behind the closed doors, quote unquote, and do whatever you want. It turns out that the guy who brought me over, he takes slot machines from casinos in the States that are no longer wanting to be used on the floor or older places. He takes them into South Florida, refurbishes them, and then buys the same pirated games from Poland or other smaller countries in Europe, sells them to these places for a couple dollars a day in terms of rent, and refurbishes these slots. So he just runs slot machines all over the place and is one of the biggest guys in the Caribbean and South America. So I was in kind of good hands. But I ended up at his members club, and he was like, okay, let's get the betting operation going. So I had
there was no betting operation at this time.
Zero. And so he
pulled you out of this club in the Dominican, and you talked your way into saying, yeah, I'll be the bookmaker, and he brings you down to start it from scratch?
Yeah, and so, like, to put this into like,
it's just insanity.
Like, sawdust on the floor,
absolute insanity.
Just run down. Like, these places are rough, to say the least, in Trinidad. And I made the dumb decision, and there's pictures of it online that I post occasionally. And for whatever reason, I decided that it would be cool now that I was a bookmaker in Port of Spain, where, again, I didn't fit in the slightest. At 18 years old, I wore like white pants with white fake alligator shoes and like these cuff shirts, these button-ups. So like I'm walking around as just this huge target. And then the only thing that I could think of in terms of starting a live betting operation was there was a scene in Goodfellas where he's placing the bet and there's the chalkboard behind the counter.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that I could jump to. So we got whiteboards and put them behind like the blackjack and the rum 32 tables. And I was just standing there with a dry erase marker writing NBA lines on these whiteboards. And we would take bets on like try sheets of paper. So I would handwrite the ticket and give the guy a slip. And then we would keep the yellow sheet in the reconciliation. And then we would have the pink sheet as sort of the record keeping.
Yeah.
And everything was handwritten. And so it lasted for about 3.5 months. And then I ended up going back to the Dominican Republic because I just it got to the point where it was fairly unsafe for me to be there. But I mean, the business was not doing well, gratefully so. Looking back on it, it's pretty funny. But that was my start, which ultimately led to bigger opportunities down the road.
The Fresh Prince of TNT.
Yeah, that's it.
It was honestly.
So you go back to the Dominican, so you get that whole experience, and now you can put bookmaker on your resume. You started a book operation. I mean, really. And now you come back to the Dominican and do what? Do you go back to betting, or where do you end up next?
So I was able to make a little bit of money from that. So I finally had like a little fun. I mean, I'm talking more than $2,000, but like I was able to sort of bet enough to actually make a living. I spent so much time looking at this for the last 3 months that I started to learn a little bit more. But I was just in the Dominican hanging out. I mean, my expenses in the Dominican anywhere I went were like $600 to $700 a month. So it was not
nice.
it was not a substantial hurdle to overcome. But the same person who took me to his club in Trinidad and Tobago, the guy that's running the slots, contacted me about 5 to 6 months later. And he was like, I know a guy in the Bahamas. He's looking for someone with his online operation. Can I put you guys in touch? And so I said, sure. And I ended up getting a call. And his name was Kevin, and he was in charge of ParadiseGames.com, which in the Bahamas, there was a big sort of battle among what were called web shops. So it was these standalone operations that would look like an internet cafe, but you would go in and you would fund a card, and then you would take that card and you would play on these online websites. And it was sort of a loophole within the government that these companies exploited for a long time. And for the most part, it's like numbers taking bets on U.S. lotteries or online casino. But then the leader in the country, which was called Island Luck, started their sports book. And so these other companies that were on the islands wanted to start their sports book as well. And so about 5-6 months later, I end up going to Nassau in the Bahamas. I fly in to meet Kevin and this entire team. And I thought I was going for a bit of an interview, but again, it was a situation where I sort of BS my way into the opportunity. We drive down the middle, like the streets of Nassau, and we get to this women's clothing store. And we go through the women's clothing store, and in the back, there's this huge door with a lock. He opens it, and it's the server room with all the computers. And they were running DGS software out of Costa Rica for their sports book. And they're like, we just got the software hooked up. We're not really sure how to use it. Here's the person who's in charge of our tech. Can you sit with him and try to figure out how to operate this and see what we can do with it?
Oh, my.
So I'm looking
So you're in the back of a woman's clothing shop in Nassau, in the Bahamas.
Back of a women's clothing shop in Nassau. And on one side, I've got the Don Best screen going, which is the first time I've ever seen that in my life. On the other side, I have the DGS Sportsbook software. And then there's this Bahamian who I'm sitting with, and he's trying to figure out how to work it. And so we're just going back and forth. And we end up sort of reading through the manual and figuring it out. And then Kevin ends up coming back. We meet at the bar, and he's like, "Do you think this is something that you could potentially operate and make work?" And of course I said, "Yes, let's do it." And I was offered $2,400 US a month, which at the time was like, I didn't even negotiate. I was like, done. Knowing what I was spent in the Dominican, living day to day, I was like, that's no problem. And so I took it, went back to the Dominican. I had the remote access on my laptop. And from that day for the next 4.5 years, I was running lines for all U.S. sports for this company, ParadiseGames.com, which eventually split to AssureWin.com. And then I got involved with Chances. But it was completely learning as I went. That's when I first learned how to price games to 100%, how to install margins, how to weight different markets. Like some of the first prop markets that I put up, like I would get a call back from Kevin, and he's like, "You priced this market to 350%. Like, who's going to bet on this?" And like, I had no idea what any of that meant, but I started to learn it. And so just working through, and I did that for 5 football seasons, 4.5 years for 3 books. And I look back, and it went from just sort of not knowing what the hell was going on to eventually having a 5% stake in these books. We went from about $500 a day in volume to start to the point where we were doing a couple million per month in terms of handle overall during football season.
Dog. That shit is sick.
And so I was with these 3 shops, and it was about halfway through sort of doing that in early 2013. I look back, it was right after the 49ers Ravens Super Bowl.
Oh, brutal.
I was at the Moon Palace, which turned into the Hard Rock in the Dominican Republic, and I left that. We were drinking all day because it was open bar. We knew some of the guys over there, and it was a rough night. Woke up the next morning, and there was sort of an after party to all of that with a bunch of people going out. Didn't want to go out. They convinced me to go. I went, sort of stumbled out of the house, and we were at this bar, and it happened just by happenstance after that day, the next day forward, that night I met the person who eventually became my wife, and we ended up going to Colombia. And so I was living in Medellin, Colombia from 2014, did about 3 years there in total. But I ran I had my laptop with me everywhere I went, and it was just running these lines. It was like 15 to 20 minutes an hour is what I said. I worked for about 16 hours a day, 363 days a year between opening the lines, moving them, rating the players, everything like that. So between the Dominican and Colombia was where I was just doing this off of my laptop for these 3 sites out of the Bahamas, which were being run into the back of a women's clothing store.
That is just fantastic. That is so. You go from Colombia, now you're back home, right?
Yeah, talk about traveling. Like, you wanted to travel, and it seemed like you went to way more places than I'm sure you thought.
Well, so here's where the story gets a little bit weird. So when I was in Colombia, it was 2015, and at the time I was like, I realized I was looking at my wife. We were just engaged, and I was like, we met in the Dominican. Her dad worked for Barcelona Resort, so she just finished her university in Colombia. She came over, and so we met. So we spent like our first 5 or 6 months together in the Dominican. She couldn't get into Canada because of visa regulations and the prime minister we had at the time. So she wanted to go back to Colombia, and I went with her. But we were now together for like 2 years. And I looked at each other, and I was like, we haven't really done anything, because I was always so restricted to my laptop. And like the cell networks at the time weren't extremely good. So I had like the USB modem. And so like if we were going out to dinner, we were going on a date, whatever, I had my laptop there. And it just became commonplace in the middle of a dinner. I was like, oh, the game's just ended for the 7 p.m. games. I got to grade the scores and see how we did. So I'd pull out the laptop on the table. I'd go in, I'd put in the scores. I'd go, okay, we made whatever we did, and we close it down, put the laptop away, and then it would come up at 8, and we get a notification that there was a big bet coming out at halftime. So I'd open it, and I'd move the line and whatever. But it just became commonplace. I was like, this has got to stop. And so
This is not conducive to actually getting married at this point. I'm impressed that you actually closed the deal. So I can't wait to hear how this is going to end up.
So I said, okay, this has got to stop. And so it was after the 2015 season, I called in. I was like, guys, I've got to stop doing this. Like, this is not a healthy way to live. And so they agreed. So we parted ways. And for a couple months, I just sort of hung out. But I got that itch, sort of. I wanted to do something. At the time, I was doing really well trading tennis on the Betfair exchange and just trading servers and that. But I wanted to do something with business. So at this point, I had some money saved up. So I go back to the same guys from Trinidad and Tobago. And what I learned the most, aside from all the sports betting stuff, was that the desire to bet on numbers, or like the U.S. lottery, for a lot of these countries was enormous. And the like these guys in the Bahamas were doing millions in volume, taking these numbers bets every single day. And like I was really interested in that business. And so I called up the guy from Trinidad and Tobago, and while I was in Trinidad, there's this game called Playway, and it's the government-run lotto. They do 4 draws a day, and it's from 1 to 36, and the payout is 24 to 1. So the government's taking a pretty considerable chunk off the handle. And so I called them up, and I was like, look, when I was there, I thought there was a pretty good opportunity that we could do something on top of those draws, like I learned from the guys in the Bahamas, and maybe we could pay like 33 to 1, 34 to run, and then we could take advantage of what the government's offering. Do you mind if I rent out the entrance of your casino, and we can take some bets and split it? And so he was all for it. So I went back to Trinidad, and this time it was in Tobago. And we started up this operation where in the front of this members club casino in this little entrance, we started taking bets on the government lottery. And instead of paying 24 to 1, we were paying 33 to 1. And so we're running it out of the casino, doing all 4 draws a day.
So somebody's going to be looking for you very quickly, is the way I'm looking at this.
So it was a huge underestimation on my part. We were about a week in. I went back over there, and we were driving up to the casino. It was like 8:30 in the morning, so everywhere is dead. And we were coming around the corner, and there was this lineup down the street. And I was like, what? He was driving the car, and I looked at him. I was like, what the hell is going on? He was like, oh, no, that's normal. And it turns out that was the line waiting to get into the door to place these bets. And so we went from just sort of doing this in the front of the casino to all of a sudden it was just blatantly obvious what we were doing. And it became extremely successful. And all these people were moving over from playing at all these shops to playing with us. And so I was like, okay, yep, that's going to be a problem, because obviously it creates a huge target on everything. And so my idea was to take it online and do something mobile, so the lines weren't that obvious and people could play from their phone. It would kill some of the traffic. And so I solicited the services of my cousin, who worked as a computer engineer and software engineer. And we came up with this platform that could allow players to fund an account and then play from their phones on all of these draws. And so immediately when we did that, the business just doubled and tripled, like overnight. It went through the roof, and we were servicing like serious volume. In that next year, like money did not become an option. And I have pictures of it. Like I moved into a huge penthouse in the San Lucas district of Medellin. So I was sitting on this penthouse floor, and there's a lyric of a song by Young Jeezy, and I have no idea if I know this, but he says, "You mean I can sit here in this big penthouse and look around and act like it ain't yours?" And it was that point where I'm sitting in this place on top of one of the most notorious cities. My wife was a teacher at a private school, and the day that it hit me, like, okay, this is serious, was this private school facilitates the kids of like some of the most powerful people in the city that do some pretty ridiculous things. And I was sitting on the couch, whatever, and I heard from outside of the balcony, we were on like floor 16, but it's really hilly, so it wasn't super high up. And all I could hear was, profe, and this teacher in Spanish. And I went and I looked over my balcony, and there were all these kids yelling up because they figured out where my wife lived, and they wanted her to come down because it was a birthday. And so I walked down with my wife. And teachers in Colombia, they get paid like $300-400 a month for doing what they do. So it's like nothing. But we walked down and we walked into this party. I was with the dog, and all of the parents who were like the powerful people in the city, they're like, "Oh, like you came in from Envigado, like the small town in the south, just to like say hello." And she's like, "No, we just live right there." And all the people were like, "What do you mean you live right there?" And she's like, "Yeah, we just live on the 16th floor right there in the apartment." And like the looks on everyone's face were like, "I don't understand. Like, how are you in that building? How are you living there?" And so like that year, I look back, we went on 7 vacations. There was a time where we hear the food in Peru is good. We went first class to Lima and just like ate for 3 days. Like it was whatever was going on. 2016 comes, business is booming. My cousin decides to get greedy. For the mistake that I made, worse than my life, was I gave him the Amazon AWS server keys, which you're not supposed to give to anyone. He takes the company hostage and holds it. He wants more money. And neither of us budge. In hindsight, we probably should have, but he was getting paid extremely well. He hits delete on all the servers. So we lose all of the accounts for everyone. We lose all of their balances. We lose all the results for today. And it causes just mass chaos inside of the location. And it turned into a really bad scene in Tobago. And it ultimately ended up where everyone had to be paid out. And that took all the money from the business. It took extra money from me. It took extra money from my partner in the business. I went from having everything, living in this huge penthouse in Medellin, to waking up the next morning essentially broke, like literally back to zero, completely drained, and then on the hook for a lot of debt that came with all of those issues from losing the program. And that, what he did, completely severed what was a very close family. Looking back, like completely divided the family. There's still been communication back and forth, but it ended the business. We tried to get it back going again, but that trust with the players was lost. And so I ended up waking up that next morning, and by the end of the day, I was sitting on the couch with like next to nothing, and any money I did have in my account was spoken for in terms of covering that debt, to where if I didn't send it over, like there was going to be serious repercussions. And so I went from everything that morning to nothing later in the night. And we were sitting there, and I looked at the wife, and I'm like, I think it's time to go back to Canada, because at that time, like I couldn't fit in anywhere to work in Medellin. She was making enough to cover about 4 days of rent for the entire month.
What kind of repercussions are we talking about? If we didn't give that, if you didn't give that dough up.
It was through the partner, who was an extremely powerful person. Like owing him a considerable sum of money was not a good idea. But then also just knowing that like the staff in this casino, like they were the ones that took the blunt for it. I was nowhere near it. But like you can imagine, if you're like a working class person in Tobago who has a decent sum of money in their account, all of a sudden they show up at the casino. Not only does their account not work on the phone, the website's down and doesn't exist anymore, but then the person at the counter is like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it got, from what I was told, extremely ugly within the casino. So there was like not only the repercussions from not paying back my partner and what that could potentially linger of just being a good person in that regard, but also knowing that the staff who had nothing to do with any of this, who were making their living from the operation that was set up were all of a sudden the ones that sort of became the faces for all the issues that came from these people not being able to access their money anymore. So it got pretty ugly from that regard, but it was just to the point where, like, certainly scared for my life. I mean, I was always public with where I was and what I was doing, and I knew that, like, he had locations around there, but I mean, there's no question it could have got extremely ugly.
Jeez.
So, wow. So you're literally, I mean, fear of your life, bottomed out. You pick up and go back to Calgary?
Yeah, so we end up back in Canada, and my wife still can't work at this time. She's going through the immigration process. She can work today, but at the time she couldn't. So we're sitting there, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I end up getting a job at a casino here, working with a company, Pure Canadian Gaming, and it was like a lower level company associated with MGM, and they had a location here, and they have about 1,100 slot machines on their floor. And so I interviewed for the position, and I start doing that. And like, it certainly wasn't a glamorous job, but I look back, and at the time, like, everything that I'd learned about gaming had been from the most unregulated markets. I had no sense of how really anything operated in any way in terms of a regulated sense. So not only did the job, as little as it paid, sort of be the out for when we arrived here, and obviously I had no college or any secondary school experience. So, like, that was an avenue that I could definitely pursue, but it allowed me to learn a lot about different machines. And there's, like, technicians from the provincial or state level that service all of the machines. So, like, the ability that we had to fix the machine was sort of restricted to, like, if the button deck went down, if the screens were miscommunication or the touch or whatever. But I got to spend a lot of time with these technicians after the shifts and learn a lot about the machines as they went on once the casino was closed, and how they operated and how they were built. And that I was at the casino for a year, had a actually really good time doing it, and sort of getting into that life of working shifts and everything like that. But
So,
I pursued
Adam, let me
betting.
jump in real quick. So you jump in and you're working in the casino. How did your wife, like, react to, you guys were flying high and living the life and everything, and now she's back there with you, can't work? How did she react to all this?
She came from a pretty modest family, to put it lightly, in Colombia. So everything that we had and the ability that we had to go anywhere was completely new for her. And I mean, looking back, for me, it was very similar. So I think there was, to an extent, a bit of comfort from not having all of the price tags and everything associated with everything that we're doing, not only for her, but for me as well. But I think the hardest thing for her, obviously, was just being stuck in Canada, in our place, not being able to do anything. She was fortunate enough to find some volunteer work, and so she really enjoyed that. It helped her pass the time, but it helped her get a feel for how things are in Canada too, in terms of, like, the workplace. So it was pretty beneficial for her from that. But off the start, it was certainly just the pace of life. I mean, from dinner wherever you want every night to thinking about just, like, the discussions we were having. We're never, like, just regular discussions. It was like, where do you want to go? And we'd be watching YouTube videos on new countries or looking through anything online. Like, just the pace of everything was so much slower to, it's like,
Right.
Let's go to the store to buy groceries. So that was a big adjustment. But fortunately, I think both of where we came from certainly aided in not necessarily needing that high sort of style of life again to continue on.
So you're back to working a shift and doing the slot thing. Where does the sports come into play here?
So I was just doing content on my own. I didn't really have a bankroll to really bet effectively at the time. And so I was just doing betting content on my own. There's no sports betting aside from the government lottery here in Canada. But where this ultimately led me, and it's just another weird sequence of events that sort of sorted things out. I ended up, through content writing, I started to get into stocks and sports gambling stocks and gambling company stocks. and writing about them online because I was like, this is going to be a safer investment than what I was doing.
This is
sort of
all like
planning
a
for the future.
creative. This is a creative outlet for you. You're still working the job to actually make money at this point.
Exactly. So I was
Okay.
working the night shift every night, and then I come home, and so I'm writing about these stocks. I write about a couple of companies, and I come across one that's based in Vancouver, and I write about them, and they were a relatively new company at the time. It got the attention of somebody at the company who followed me on Twitter. I've had my account going since like 2011. He followed me for betting talk and chat, and he ends up seeing it. He's like, hey, I work at this company. And he forwards it to the COO at the company, who reads what I wrote, and I was really critical in what I wrote and why I thought the product could be better. He flies me over to Vancouver, and he's like, would you be interested in potentially doing some marketing for us? And so I kind of went with it, and I worked my way into a job as a marketing guy at the company in Vancouver, ended up driving over to Vancouver, moving everything over there. I start with the company, which is publicly traded on the Canadian Stock Exchange, and I'm getting like $40,000 a year salary for doing marketing for this gaming company. And
Another
within the
remote
matter-
job at this point?
No, this had me move to Vancouver. So I was working the early 2017. I was working right downtown Granville Street in this giant office, which still to this day was the biggest culture shock to me ever. And so I started working in marketing. Within 4 months, I somehow maneuvered my way up to product manager and was leading development for a team of 10 developers on their new gaming product. And between 2011 and this summer, when I was with the company, took the company and the product through GLI regulations, made it compliant for casinos in North America. We sold them to a number of different cruise lines, dealt with some of the major cruise lines as well as casinos in Europe. We had some products in Arkansas and the Southeast United States as well. And so not only was I doing the dev work in terms of sort of writing the requirements and coming up with creative lines for the gaming product, but I was also representing the product at gaming shows. So I was leading at G2E, I was at ICE, and then doing all these installations. So I got to really see the regulated side of not only the U.S. casino industry, but over in Europe and then on these cruise ships as well. And
So
through all of
this is a far cry from the back of the woman's clothing shop.
Oh, it's a completely different world. But like I look back at all of these, I go from that to wearing a suit at ICE, meeting with these huge casino operators or representing the product in front of cruise lines, doing business pitches. But every little thing that sort of happened along this crazy sort of journey was like, I never went to college, never went for that education, but I learned little bits of pieces of things for all sides of the industry, for betting, for slots, for electronic table games, sort of in a sequence that allowed a progression to sort of work through these things. And it ultimately led me to these opportunities. And so I was, again, in a weird way, as prepared as anyone could have ever been. That our company in Vancouver was hiring out of these huge colleges with these fancy degrees, because when we sat down at these tables to negotiate deals with Scientific Games or Every or Aristocrat or any of these companies, like I had so much in common with a lot of people who worked through this. Whereas looking at other guys on the tables, there's a guy who's now senior officer at Amazon. There's like all these fantastic people and software engineers that like they had no concept of the gaming space. So
Right.
like I fit into this very specific role that was really beneficial. But I was with the company till summer this year, and that was the hardest thing that I've done in the last 10, 11 years was go to an office every day and sit there from 9 to 5 with the same people and look at them. Like that became, it scared me to death. And like the recurring paycheck every month without any upside, no matter how good of a job you did, you would get paid the same money. If you had a terrible month and made all the mistakes, you still got the same money. Like there was no risk. And I couldn't take it anymore. And we got out. We got out of the city. and we came back to Alberta this summer, which feels a lot more like home. And again, I was able to sort of build up a bankroll again and got back some old connections within the betting space. And this year was really my biggest push in terms of betting and outlay every single day, but also by far my biggest in content. And I think sort of the combination of both is where I really have the most enjoyment and really like what I'm doing, but certainly a big focus on content now, just because I'm having so much fun doing it. But now
are you married to that
it's a combo.
laptop again, Adam?
I have a bit more of a pleasant setup at a desk, but it's good to be like I'm not hooked up to hours from other places, but it's just sort of on my own. So much slower pace yesterday morning and this morning in terms of looking at different sports now than it was during NFL. But it's just I feel much more comfortable doing what I'm doing now than ever before, even if the stability is far less.
Do you feel more free? Like the time is yours again, or you have the flexibility that maybe you didn't have?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's what I like about it most is it's on the work that I do, and I either get rewarded for the work I do or I don't. It's totally on me. So it's not only the freedom, but also the control that comes with it, that I can really dictate what happens within the life.
So you're a content guy now. You've done it all. You've gone, crazy travels and stuff. You do this podcast basically every day, all of football season. How hard was it to do something every single day?
Well, I love the idea of radio. I love the idea of having, like, as soon as I hit record, it's a blank slate. And if I can bring value to people in every single morning, that's great. But I don't find like the creative part of it difficult because I'm relaying what I see. I'm relaying what I bet, and I'm relaying sort of the process that I have in handicapping and betting NFL every day. So in many ways, it's like a way for me to sort of keep my mind clear by getting everything out and saying it out loud that I'm thinking. And it's helped me a lot in many ways because I think any of us who are betting on NFL every single day are looking at the lines, like you think and you feel something with the prices you're seeing on the screen or you're anticipating movement, and then it happens and you're like, I knew that was going to happen. This is sort of in a weird way, doing it every single morning has really made me sort of commit to what I'm saying and being able to put it out there and make it public has, like, once you sort of get it out of your system and you say it, like, it's amazing how much sort of capacity you clear up in your head, or at least that's the way that I feel about it. So I have a lot of fun doing it, but it helps me in many ways too.
Excellent. Well, I think if you haven't, your plan is to do it again next season, right?
Yeah, this was season 2. Next year I'm going to do it some more. The wife got me a camera for Christmas, so in the last month and a bit, I've really been practicing with some camera stuff and working on that. So I'll probably start doing some videos along with it too. And I don't know if that's going to be more betting focused or if it's going to be sort of betting with sports and try to sort of bridge the gap there. But I'm having a lot of fun learning how to sort of work a camera and how to edit some videos and things like that.
Nice.
So it'll definitely be happening again next year as well.
So tell me real quick, we got a few minutes left, about this Cappers Con.
I kind of went long on the story.
No, that's okay. It was a great story.
We'll hit you up when the movie comes out.
Yeah, we got
we'll
we
get
got
at
a
you, we'll
lot
get
of
at you then.
similar takeaways from. I did a stint in the Dominican at Santo Domingo myself for. I was there for 1 month, and I didn't leave the apartment where I was stationed, and because I really felt like a mark, and. I hopped around. I was in Curacao, and I did a lot of the same stuff. I did it a little bit before you did, and didn't quite have the same result. But at the same time, the story is very engaging. But now, modern day, you're doing content, obviously in control of what you can put out, make yourself better. So in the scheme of things, like with Twitter and everything else, you're getting on a lot of these shows and doing stuff. So this Cappers Con thing comes up in New York. Yep. How was that? Because, you got guys there that, we follow, and, that was it a good time?
it was a great time until I met Joey Knish, and then it just went south. I'm joking.
He's not.
He's a super nice
He's
guy.
not.
Had a ton of fun with him. So the event actually ended up getting canceled a few days before it, and I don't know the circumstances that went into that. The
You
person who was
tweeted that
running
you
it,
went to the bar and you did all this stuff, so it was a social meetup is what it turned into?
So, well, it was supposed to be this big event at a hotel, and the gentleman who was running it I talked to him a few times on the phone when he originally reached out. Like, he was super nice in how he handled it. I don't know the circumstances that ultimately went into canceling it.
Knish took it all
But
down
with,
somehow.
well,
Knish Khan.
it was all an inside scheme by him. No, and so I had all the plans set to go. It was been my second time in New York, but there's also a lot of people that I knew that wanted to meet up as well. And so as soon as it got canceled, I was like, I'm still going to go and make a weekend out of it. And so people got together at a bar. It was a decent turnout, like for just a random event with strangers on the internet. It was a really good group of guys that showed up. Knish was there wearing his Knish T-shirt, which was modeled after the Knicks logo, which made me laugh a lot.
Of course.
So we got into a lot of beers, and it's amazing. Like, there's so much shit that goes back and forth between people on Twitter trying to show off and what have you. But at the end of the day, it's very interesting when you meet everyone and people, and there's not sort of the combative tone that Twitter takes on a lot of times. You realize that all the people you deal with every day online that read your stuff you interact with have literally the exact same things in common and the same interest as you. And it's weird when you're sitting around the table and there's all these people that you don't know. You have more to talk about with them than half the people you interact with on your daily life back home where you are. So, like, it's really easy when you meet up with some of these people that get into a night like we did, where it went 5-6 hours at the bar and then a few hours after pizza, and it was just a great time.
I feel like a lot of the beers
sort of
help
the case
as well, for the most part.
Oh, it's fantastic. But it was a really fun
No
time.
doubt.
It was great.
Yeah.
I call it the sickness. We all have it. And not in a
Freaks.
bad way, but
Yep.
it's the business. It's what draws us in and what keeps us around. And it's the same language, no matter where you're from. Everybody can have an opinion. It's a really interesting thing. Adam, last
100%.
question before we let you go. You want to ask him two questions. I was going to say your takeaway from the Super Bowl, your tweets recently have been pretty interesting, where you kind of said maybe Shanahan doesn't get all the blame because those plays that you kind of diagrammed, I was thinking too, maybe running the ball is a safe play, but if Jimmy G completes either one of those passes, they probably win the game, right?
Well, if you're anyone on that 49er staff and it's before the game and you're presented with the scenario of being up 20-10 with 7 minutes left to play, and you have your opponent 3rd and 15, and the money that you invested in the team on the pass rush is what's going to potentially win you the game. There's no one on that staff that's saying no. Like, they're all over that scenario. And I think in many ways, San Francisco got exactly what they wanted. And the Shanahan thing is getting the takeaway. And I think that's mainly because the media is really associating that with the 28-3. And it's like the good narrative to talk about, because for the most part, the game was very competitive and it's not like a huge headline grabber. But if you look at that sequence of plays, first of all, the 49ers had no success running the ball between the tackles all game. Everything that they had running the football was reverses. It was fake tosses out wide. Like, everything was outside the numbers, relying on their speed. That, to sort of push that forward, it was a great, it complements the KCD line, but it shows that, like, that's a risky play, having a tailback or a wide receiver 7-8 yards in the backfield in that situation. And so Shanahan goes to arguably the best tight end in the game when it comes to receiving, draws up 2 brilliant plays on 2nd and 5 and 3rd and 5, both of which Kittle is wide open at the first down marker in the middle of the field. Like, we're talking easy 7-8 yard passes. The first one, Frank Clark gets his hands up, which I think was probably the most important single play of the Super Bowl. The second one, Jimmy G doesn't even see Kittle. He's looking out wide to his right, and he makes the overthrow. But in both cases, like, it was a 7-yard throw to a wide open tight end in Kittle that would have probably won the game ultimately for the 49ers. So to see Shanahan taking the blame for the run or the pass, I don't necessarily agree with, because he went to the pass, which for the entire season, the push of the season was in those scenarios you want to be throwing the football to pick it up. If he ends up running and doesn't have success and the guy gets hit in the backfield for a loss of 7 on a big toss, he's taking as much criticism as he is now. So it's like a no-win situation. But the plays that he drew up and called for that situation were wide open and worked. And on both cases, Jimmy G failed to execute. So I don't think that he gets much blame for it. I think it's just, I wouldn't even put that much blame on Jimmy G for that situation. I think it's just, it was a great play by Frank Clark on the first and a complete misread on the second. But the opportunity was there both times.
Right. All right. Last question before we let you go. The
Sure.
XFL. I have zero interest in it myself. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to wait and see what the product is. But there's guys like you out there that are really diving into it. One, to know it, but two, looking at it from a betting standpoint, there's going to be opportunity there. Obviously, we're going to tell everybody to follow you anyway. But how deep are you diving into this XFL, and what do you see, at least with your initial work?
I don't know how deep I'll ultimately go. I was kind of excited from, like, getting back to what we were saying. Anytime, like, a league like this starts, obviously, as we've seen with a lot of, like, social personalities within the NFL, or you look at anything that's the Barstool or the Pat McAfee or whatever it may be, like, if you're early and you do something well, or you have past experience in something else, like, if this were to take off, anyone who's sort of doing any content around it right now is probably, if they're any good at what they do, is going to have a lot of fortune coming their way. So in a way, it's a bet on what you can potentially put out. But from a betting perspective, as much as I was potentially excited from the content side, I'm looking at this and it's 40 games in the course of the season. NFL at 267 games over the course of the season it's difficult enough to find an edge that you can exploit to often enough to make a decent profit. When you look at 40 games, it obviously becomes even more difficult, to the point where there's going to be a lot of luck. But the couple things that I would say for anyone listening to the show is, I think a lot of the rules and the changes are getting a lot of publicity, but in terms of what you want to know as a bettor, I think the play volume is extremely important, especially when it comes to totals. If you remember back to the Alliance of American Football last year, those totals in like week 1 were all in the like low 50s. And by week 4, they dropped into the mid 30s. And
quick.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, it's the bad offensive talent. I would disagree. And I'd say that not only was the game encouraged to be played quicker, but because it was so quick and you have a lack of communication, which is the key part here, if you look at the play volume game versus, like, if you take an Alliance of American Football game and you compare it to an NFL, you're getting like the same 125 to 130 plays. But in the Alliance of American Football, it was 130 plays on fast forward. Like, there was very low time for these coaches to get the communication in, which is difficult enough in the NFL, let alone now you have guys in the Alliance of American Football who have never played together, all brand new teams in a brand new league in a brand new format. And we're saying score an equal amount of points to the NFL pros that have all of this working in their favor on the same amount of plays. Like, it just wasn't realistic. But I look at the XFL and two things stand out. The first is that every skilled player is going to have helmet communication to the coach and the coordinator. So we're looking at a game where there can be a coordinator sitting in the booth radioing into a wide receiver saying motion over to the right, or get in the slot, or run this route, or the defense is showing this. It's not just limited to the quarterback. So for many of these coordinators, it's going to become, to an extent, like a video game in terms of what they're able to maneuver. I think that that's a huge advantage that not a lot of people are really talking about. And the second thing that stands out to me is, although the timing rules are very similar to the Alliance of American Football, it's a stop clock for all plays inside of 2 minutes. And we have a direct comparison to the CFL, who has similar timing rules that's inside the final 3 minutes. But when you're looking at a CFL game, which is very similar timing rules, you get a huge spike in play volume inside those 3 minutes. And why I think that is important, if we look to the American AAF or whatever it was, they were on similar timing rules to the XFL producing NFL rate play volume per game at that 125 to 130 mark. If the XFL plays to a similar standard, but then you get the increase inside the 2-minute warnings and play volume like we see in the CFL, I don't think it's a stretch to say we're going to see 140 plus plays a game in the XFL. You couple that in with the field position rules, the kickoff rules, any punt out of bounds or into the end zone gets spotted at the 35. The kickoffs are different in terms of how the players line up, to the point where it's basically a running play where if you can break it because the defenders don't have a running start, it's not a stretch to get to the 40, 45-yard line to start a drive. So you have shorter field position, you have a quicker clock, but with higher play time, and you have these coaches and coordinators being able to communicate with any skilled player on the offense. The XFL is really smart in how they set it up. I think a lot of these rules are going to disguise the lack of talent, and it could prove out to be where we're seeing totals somewhere in the 40s that are deservingly so. So I'm curious to see if people react to the Alliance of American Football and come in and just hammer the unders whenever they're posted this week, because I don't know if that's necessarily the case of what we'll see early on. So from just sort of modeling totals, you have to think it's maybe higher. We're
all sitting here, and AB and I just actually looked at each other and both went over. Like, we both pointed, like, our thumbs up. Like, this sounds like, and we'll let you go with this, but, I mean, tremendous breakdown there. And just, I didn't know that about the guys. Everyone's going to have an earpiece, or communication with the coaches. Sounds like there's going to be some points scored. I mean, for the numbers breakdown, guys, a lot of people, and, you're starting to find this out when you do content, they want the work done for them. What are you saying? Bet overs? Like, initially, that's what we're looking at? There's going to be points scored in these games?
I don't know what kind of totals we'll see. So I can't just say, like, bet overs, and then we might see these numbers posted, like, mid-50s. And then, like, obviously that becomes high. But I think that if I wouldn't necessarily agree with what I would anticipate to be
numbers,
a snap reaction to blanket bet the unders.
Excellent.
I think anything under 47 is an over.
There you go.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
I mean, he said the two things that I've been thinking about when I've been looking at all this stuff is that play volume is up, and then my favorite thing he said, they've created rules that can cover up for the lack of talent.
Yeah, that's
when
big.
you have that. Now you're going to get some bigger plays that you wouldn't have got. And, I think there's definitely some interesting things. I'm already mad about a line I just saw move. Sick about it.
Yeah.
All right. Adam, we can't thank you enough for joining us. Really enjoyed the conversation.
No, this was incredible.
Yeah.
This is great. This is definitely one of the better ones that I've heard in my life, actually.
We'll be in touch. I think, at some point we got to talk about doing some content. I don't know how that sounds to you, but, I think we could actually.
We're definitely going to talk more XFL, so that's all there is.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
You're going to be our go-to XFL guy for sure.
I don't know if I want that title yet.
No, it's done. Adam, it's done. It's already a wrap. I've already made a decision.
No titles.
Great.
No titles for Adam Chernoff, but on Twitter, he is at Adam Chernoff, and that's CHERNOFF. Must follow on Twitter. Dude, thank you so much for joining us, and we will definitely be in touch.
No, thank you very much for having me on, and appreciate the time, and sorry if I went a little long with the story.
No
it's
problem,
fine, man. You're good.
We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. That was Adam Chernoff. Man, what a story.
That was out of control.
Gracious. I mean, like, immediate reaction to that, boys, is like, wow.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it all is.
An adventure.
And I can tell you this personally from being down there, him being down in Trinidad and Tobago and Dominican Republic and wearing the shirts.
He ended up in Nassau.
And then in Nassau and basically running numbers.
Yeah.
Essentially, that last operation. And then in Colombia.
Yeah.
You just never know
where
this is going to take
right.
it. Yeah, and
I was going to say Scarface when he brought up his gear before the Fresh Prince, which was great, too. The Fresh Prince was incredible. But I was like, he's like Scarface, but Ace Rothstein. Like, it's like a mix.
Oh, my goodness.
It's out of control, man. Dude.
It's crazy. And I can just imagine there were times, I mean, like just the Roach story where he goes, what is this?
Oh yeah, no. He's like, what kind of beetle is? Well, he had to call his mom. Oh, dude, it was good. All of it was that was insane. That was
awesome,
man. That's great.
HB,
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Stepped into the house here. He's here, fresh off his first half under bet, and
Came in with the blazer.
yeah, and time to eat. He didn't come in with the blazer.
Yeah, he came
Got
through
that
with it.
blazer off that cash.
Yeah,
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Check the
he's
shirt,
making
the jacket
appearances.
pockets. No, I
Some money falling out.
we actually
all
we did
types
the
of cash.
we did the photo opportunity with Jason Halpin over at Aria. He not only won the regular season bookie battle, but he won the playoff edition as well.
Oh man.
So we had
Hot.
the
fire.
oversized check, and we did the whole meet and greet with the handshake and the check.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Speaking of clothes, that's a really dope jacket.
I appreciate it.
Circa Sports, folks.
Yeah, they're doing something.
Can a
We're doing- we're
50-year-old
doing a
say
little
dope?
bit. Yeah, most
Oh, okay.
definitely. Yeah. That's Reynolds does not agree.
No,
No, he's not feeling it. He's not
People
feeling
don't. We're not on video. They don't see me.
all right. Howard, can you mention the Gaming Today subscription? Has the deal changed?
The deal has reverted back. The special ended, and it's now $6.95 for the digital edition of Gaming Today. You get real-time lines, scores, analysis, award-winning content, up-to-the-minute scores, and line changes from 6 major sports books. I'm doing this without a card, folks. But GamingToday.com and GamingToday.com/register if you'd like to sign up. Thanks for your support.
Good work. I can't find the fucking card. I'm standing up looking for it.
I feel like you'd have it locked in.
I might have to
by
write
now.
you. Might have to write you up later.
Oh,
Fuck. All right. Mo, we're going to save you for last for Take a Minute
yeah, that's fine.
because I'm sure you have something to say about
yeah,
the Niners
it's-
fucking
yeah.
losing that game. I still
Yeah, man.
can't fucking believe it. HB, you got a Take a Minute segment prepared today?
I'm gonna try to ad lib the best I can. Sure, got some ideas.
All right. We'll kick it off with you first, AB.
Oh,
Oh wow.
I got nothing.
All right.
Oh.
That I don't even have to start the clock. That was easy. I anticipated that. All right. You're on the hook. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Glasses off. 3, 2, 1.
I adore my wife. We've been married 21 years, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, caveats coming. Saturday, the entire weekend, I should say, the weather in Las Vegas for Super Bowl weekend was just absolutely outstanding until the winds came right at kickoff. But Saturday was absolutely stunning, 74 degrees, no reason to be inside. And at about 11:30, she comes over and she says, we need to go to Costco because we've got a bunch of kids coming over to watch the Super Bowl, teenage boys. I wasn't happy, but I went because I knew it was going to be in store at Costco the day before Super Bowl. For you folks that go to Costco every week and are professional samplers, and you jump from station to station to eat all of the samples they hand out and call it your lunch, it is fucking annoying. Okay, I'm not happy I'm there in the first place, but, sir, the guy with the Liberty High School baseball hat, you didn't have to box me out for the taquitos and also grab 6 of them for the rest of your family.
I like the word box out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he would have exuded that type of box out in high school, he would have played more.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
brutal.
jeez.
Right.
So, we love Costco. We don't love the process. Thank you.
Wow. All right.
Oh,
that
man.
box out.
That's good.
Yep.
You need to take one and be on your way, you fuck.
Maybe they can email you. Call you? Anything? No. Anyone calling you yet?
Few.
Really?
Yeah, they've responded.
Wow.
Well, when they see 9-1 in the Weekend for Winners, a.k.a.
it.
Bearish Bangers, they start to come out of the woodwork.
I can't believe there's a 1.
There's people rooting for me to lose, by the way, too, like you say, Mo. They're just
hey.
waiting. They're waiting for it to go bad.
That's when they'll call you.
They don't even remember until it happens. Like, they're like, oh, he started. Okay, now we're on him.
Hey,
We're on him now.
fade me at your peril.
Ooh, now he's coming in real hot. Bo, you ready?
Yeah, I guess.
Didn't even mention the horses.
We're still not mentioning the horses.
Yeah, that's
3, 2, 1.
before I get into any fanhood stuff. A buddy of mine, I think this was maybe Thursday or Wednesday, and we get down as far as action goes. And he had like a bad day the day prior, so he was like, I need to hit a grand slam, which was like an 8-teamer for him, and he doesn't really do them as much. I mean, but he threw in one for 100, and we discussed some plays, and it got there. He hit a $100 8-teamer. It was the most absurd. Yeah, it's my homie Lance. He wanted me to Lance Shove, and he wanted me to shout him out at least.
What does that bring back?
It was like $16K, but he hedged off Blazers when there was mad steam when Harden and Capella came back. I don't know if you remember that game. And then the Blazers they ended up smoking him, but he got off a lot of it, and I mean, still made quite a bit. So we say grand slam every other time now as a joke. So if anybody wants, to hit an 8-teamer, that's a grand slam now forever. That's a cash considerations original.
I like
even though my homie made it up, I don't care. But it's we'll talk about the game after. But that's my minute. Yeah,
nice call. That's a big hit for Lance.
Yeah, no, he's been doing well already, but that was big for him. So
all right,
I was happy for him.
All right, here's my minute right now. Just as important as knowing what to bet is knowing when to bet. We talk about getting the best price, getting the best line. It's all very important. Super Bowl Sunday, about 10 minutes, maybe 15, before the game. Ticker's just rolling.
Yeah.
Rolling. Everybody's getting their bets in. Comes across $20, New York Yankees to win the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Followed by $20 on the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup.
Oh, yeah.
We died. We could not stop laughing because I've been that guy.
Yeah.
I've been that guy at the window that goes, are you seriously betting this right fucking now?
Yeah.
Like, wait 5 more minutes, 15 minutes. The game kicks off. You can bet whatever you want.
Yeah.
Was it a strip property?
Yes.
At your own
They
leisure.
have no idea. They have no idea. So my take a minute going forward is be aware of your surroundings when you're in a sports book. Cash tickets when the games are already gone. Like, make a bet on something that's going to start. And if you're a horse guy, you've been behind people that wanted to bet and make a bet and couldn't because they were betting the fucking Yankees to win this World Series right at post time. So that's it. That's my minute.
You don't know what I've dealt with at the Kentucky Derby.
Oh,
That-
you can't imagine.
Every
You
amateur,
can't imagine.
they come in
Yes.
from the pool in their bathing suit.
Yeah.
I want the silk colors red.
Yeah.
And there's an amazing card before the Derby. There's all grade 1 races.
Yeah.
So all the degenerate, or horse players
Yeah.
Yeah.
are trying to bet the other
Synonymous.
races. And you've got, I like the name of Lollipop Kisses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's got to be done.
Can't do it. Yeah.
I begged a sportsbook manager once. I said, please open up a dedicated Kentucky Derby bets window only.
Yeah.
So all the $5 and $10
don't.
players. No. Nope.
Yeah, no,
Nope.
it's-
Fuck. It was a fuck you.
Yeah.
That was
It
the
was
beginning
a
of my fuck yous.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I just can't believe it, but it continues to happen. I actually had to tell someone one time, the Derby started. The entire sports book, everybody freezes. A guy comes up to my window. We're all watching the race, and he goes, what are the Milwaukee Brewers to win the division? I said, I'll tell you in 2 minutes. We're watching the race.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the movie Slapshot. When I'm listening to the fucking song when the Hanson brothers are there, I said, I'm watching the race. The guy had no idea that the Kentucky Derby was going on. He wanted the Brewers to win the division right when the race started.
No, seriously, what are the Brewers?
Yeah. Fuck you. All right.
It was his first trip to Vegas. First trip from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Leave the guy alone.
That's fair enough. Super Bowl, boys. Super Bowl. Mo.
Yeah.
The pain.
Yeah, man. Always. Yeah. That shit don't end. That shit doesn't end, man.
I mean, you were right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right there.
It was
20 to 10. Adam just said it. 7.5 minutes to go
Yeah, man.
with the ball.
But well, Alan knows for sure. But I'm never comfortable, and then I never give up hope. It's weird. It's like a two-way street with me. Like I could be down 30 or 20 to trying to get to like 4. I'm like, no, we can make a run. Or if I'm up 10, even up like with 3 minutes, I'm like, dude, like the worst shit can possibly happen.
So you weren't comfortable?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Ever?
Yeah, and I think like my family started to figure that out when they were asking why wasn't I cheering, and I'm like, there's a lot going on right now. So, my sisters were having a great time, and it was good with the family. I was very happy to be with my friends and family.
Right.
But for it to end in such a way, oh my God, man, it was. Even my dad, who doesn't sweat games out like that,
He was sweating it.
I think that when I heard him or when I seen his hands,
He hasn't probably sweated it since he was at Super Bowl I.
right? Yeah, or if he was at whatever
if we verified
that was. Oh yeah, he was telling us the story again. I mean, it's very simple, but I'm like, well, it's a dream at this point. But his hands were on his head when the Tyreek Hill pass was completed, the 40-yard pass, and I remember just looking at him saying like this is it. Like, he knows what the deal is. Like, this is about to blow up in our face. And, it was just rough. It was rough, man. But it was a good game. It took me only, like, an hour or 2 hours to get the hell over it. But
Right.
it fucking sucks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad.
Did you eat good after your first half?
Oh, guac tasted better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything was it?
Yeah, done. It was a little bit of a sweat. It was 10-10, and there was some movement down the field. You had the play called back on Kittle. He did extend his arm. I didn't think it was the greatest call, and I thought that was going to screw me. I was going to have a push at 27. Apparently, the halftime line came down to 26. I got it earlier in the week.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a good number, as they say.
Yep.
I thought it was a great game, apart from all the emotional stuff, however
Yeah,
you
it was
were
good.
attached.
No, it was a good game.
I don't think the officials ruined it like they could have overall. And I just thought it was a good game. It was a good football game to watch and enjoy.
It was. One thing that I noted was there were no holding calls. There wasn't one holding call. We watched the NFL for 20 fucking weeks, and there's holding calls nonstop.
Came straight from the top.
Right? Put the
Guaranteed.
flag away.
Yep.
It was obvious to me watching the game.
Chiefs
That
looked
was
like they
the
had a
number one
few.
reason I was surprised they made the call on Kittle, because
Right.
they weren't calling anything.
Exactly.
So I was like, wow. I'm like, all right, I guess. Yeah.
It just seemed like, there was a directive, let's say, a memo, whatever you want to call it. Let them play. But no holding calls. I'm shocked. There was not a single holding call.
And there were several occasions where you thought, geez, Mahomes had a few extra seconds there. There was
There was a bunch
yeah.
of things that we can look back, and we're not going to sit here and
I mean, I
bury
figure
the-
if
the
like
refs.
one of the better pass rushes in like the league, like if they're not getting held, I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
insane.
They were
for the-
getting there, like the first
Oh,
three quarters,
dude.
they were getting there the whole game.
Dog,
Like, man.
the beginning of that third quarter, they were in his face like every other
I
second.
know.
It was out of control. I mean,
Did you see an exorbitant amount of props, like all weekend betting wise? I know. I mean, like
they were
Saturday.
betting, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we took. I saw just a lot of like the smaller bets. There was a lot of interest in the game. I mean, the ticker was rolling.
Yeah.
All weekend, and Saturday was a goddamn nightmare with all those college basketball games. It was a long day.
Yeah.
And then it culminated with the Laker game late, which they lost Friday, and the line, you could have made it 10. They were at the road at Sacramento.
yeah.
There wasn't a single bet on the Kings.
I had everything pinned right on that game except for LeBron.
Except for
scoring
LeBron
points.
scoring points.
I hate him so much.
Was there a lot of cross-sport props? I mean, I'm sure in volume of tickets, but dollars?
No.
No.
Dollars
Okay.
that nobody
So
plays.
everyone's doing 20s and 30s. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Small
mean, no
fun
one's
stuff.
betting those, like other than
They're
a
just-
sharp guy.
right.
Like no one bet those.
Right.
They're almost too confusing, or they require you watching two different things.
Well, yeah,
Right.
the Caps-Penguins game was early in the day, so there was Ovechkin props and things
Yeah.
that were so
Yeah.
gimmicky.
Right.
Well, in theory, that's the only way you'd make them, because if you make anything that's not like part of the game, you want it to be completely separated for, if you are in the book, you can watch something in the hockey game and then it ties into the Super Bowl. But Yeah, I mean, there's just not much interest in those things.
I feel like there should be more. I mean, if there's
Well, they just want to bet things that are 10-1.
right,
That's
yeah,
all it is.
That's it.
They want to bet the first touchdown. They want
Sure.
to bet the octopus. They want to
Well, I guess. Well, other than that, it would be the
live to fight another day.
dude.
That
We had more money and more bets on that prop. Like, it was insane. We had
Tell
more
the
bets on
listeners
that
again
prop.
Tell the listeners again what the octopus.
Okay,
prop
so
is.
the player had to score the touchdown and then also score the 2-point conversion on the same possession. So we had more bets on that than we had on first half spread.
oh
On
wow,
the
real?
yes. On the yes.
wow.
Yeah.
So you had a heavy liability if that
Huge liability.
somehow happened.
Not
Did you
to
move it?
mention a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. We moved it. I mean, it was 12-1. I think we closed like 850.
Okay.
Something like
well
that.
into the 6-figure liability.
Oh yeah.
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah.
At that
if
number, right?
if we tied that into 2-point attempt and 2-point conversion, massive loss.
Hemorrhage.
Yeah.
I mean, the amazing thing was no matter how the game ended, Chiefs over, Chiefs under, 49ers over, 49ers under, all winners.
Here's
Every
what's
single
interesting.
thing. Every single thing.
In getting the news tidbits, and this is a little industry news right now, the states back east are showing losses. New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah,
huh?
and then,
Huh.
yeah.
yeah. I think
Do you have?
back-to-back
Can we
years for
can we
Jersey.
can we
I
deep dive
mean,
into this?
I think
Do we say it? I mean, know.
we don't. We don't have to say it.
Can you generalize?
But they grade things differently. Obviously, they don't. Their futures were already graded at the end of the regular season, and as teams get eliminated, they grade them and they throw them in those numbers. So it's differently. It's done differently in those states. So,
But I mean, we could have thrown out ours and we still crushed.
without
I mean,
a doubt,
it's not even.
no, because
But it wasn't like there was a
just-
regional Patriots or Giants bias. So I'm trying to understand why Pennsylvania's off 10%, New Jersey's off 8%. And here you guys are all crushing it. What's the difference?
Um,
Been doing it a long time.
yeah, and you have, let's say, ability to enhance your position in mature markets where you can move a line to, hence the money line. All we had to do to get any Niner money was go to plus 13, plus 14, plus 15, and the ticker just started rolling. So,
And you thought the West was for Cowboys.
yeah, right? There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And
And I don't mean the Dallas Cowboys.
it's going to be very interesting to see where all that goes next. Now, when they come about and look at the numbers and go, wow, how did Nevada do it again? Like, I think someone's going to ask that
I
question.
think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I do.
It's-
And then when March Madness comes and we analyze that, and if it stays in that type of trend,
It won't. There's too many games. You don't have to be a genius to be a bookmaker if you know how to just take action. But
Yeah.
you can make more money when you're smart or when you're
Yeah.
good at it.
Well, that's the thing. right
And
there.
it's just like betting.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you bet too many games, you can be great. You just can't win.
and it's also not that it's factored into the handle or win-loss, the spend on the customer acquisition in these early stages, that's a part of the marketing that's just astronomical.
They gave back the Mahomes yardage rushing prop at PointsBet.
Sure.
They gave the money back.
Yeah, sure.
You lost. Well, you know what? We need you to stay and
Loyalty,
bet.
right?
Yeah.
And then somebody down the street offers 33-1, and guess where all the loyalty goes?
Right.
Across the street.
Exact and Adam just said
How do you
it. I
s-
mean,
Yeah.
There's things we could say. Just we're not Harvard MBAs, but yeah, interesting stuff.
Speaking of props, I actually went back and forth with the guy that bet the prop with you guys at Circa. It's getting a lot of traction. We're picking the exact score.
Oh yeah. Right.
He had 31
Yeah.
for 10 dimes,
Right.
and he had 20
For 35.
for 3,500.
Yeah.
But and you guys listening to the show, you can find. I actually posted a picture of it, real quick because I know him.
Yep.
And it's getting a lot of traction today. Ravel wrote a story about it. A lot of things happening. He bet a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, he bet,
everyone's
he bet
talking
quite a
about
bit.
he won all this money. I know if you're listening, Z, there's a lot of people that don't know. you were exposed. There's a lot of bets being made. This guy didn't just win a house, and that's what like the story that's kind of behind the story. You only hear about the winners. You only hear. I mean, these guys played a ton far as like no safety.
It's never ended.
Well,
It's just
like,
kept
well,
coming.
I mean, the limits like that we took too. Like, so
Yeah.
I mean, these guys,
Man, you guys were.
they
like,
spared no
limits were
expense on.
insane.
I mean, we took 10K to
I know.
on a
number.
30. I mean,
On any prop,
so
right?
So that
yeah,
200K
that day
win,
of, it was all 10K. Yeah,
that
day of.
200K win could conceivably have cost him 140.
Possibly correct.
So
That's very true.
before everyone gets all excited,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
I
it's,
mean,
it's a nice return regardless on your money.
didn't
but
even, man, he could have.
consider the investment.
My man could have went out of bounds. Like, fucking go down, motherfucker. Like, what are you doing? But
It's a wild game.
What'd you
It
say?
is.
He saw green.
he saw green in the end zone. There's
Yeah.
not much else
And it's
that
a
you need to
Super Bowl,
see. Yeah.
and he's running.
I needed.
Yeah, that
balls
goes in the record
air.
books.
Yeah,
It's
there's
hard to-
fans.
It's
Our
hard.
fans are in the end zone over there.
Should
I
he have
think.
won the MVP?
No.
Nah, man.
You still don't think so?
No, because that play was over the second he crossed the first down line.
Right.
Like it, now he's got a balloon touchdown. He's got balloon yardage.
Yeah, I mean, what else? Like, I mean, he caught basically the go-ahead touchdown,
Right,
and
which was
put
thrown by the
Mahomes.
guy.
Mahomes
Yeah.
threw the ball to him.
Okay.
Mahomes had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Like,
and he
he's-
had 2 touchdowns.
I
down the
guarantee
stretch.
you right now, if we put probably
2 passing, 1
28
rushing,
quarterbacks back there, the Chiefs don't win that game.
I guarantee it.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
So
Good call. I agree. Yeah,
Fist pump just occurred.
yeah, man. That's a big deal. Like, but there's like a lot of stuff that goes into it, like what he did for the team, body language,
his mobility.
like yeah, like dude,
Like-
he.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff
he
that
didn't
he
have
did.
a great game, but that's because the Niners D is legit.
That's
They're
what.
good.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yep.
And one of the picks was a tip.
Yeah,
so-
no, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
that happens.
I mean, he played way better than what people think. It didn't look good because it wasn't Mahomes like, but as a Super Bowl winning quarterback, that was pretty gutsy in my opinion.
Definite leader.
Yeah.
It doesn't always look good when the other team's making it hard.
Yeah,
that's
no,
the thing.
yeah,
Exactly.
He had
Yeah.
to overcome
Oh,
a
man.
lot, and he got hit.
He got hit a lot. Yeah,
He had no time.
Yeah.
A lot.
yeah, a lot.
They
Hey,
didn't-
bookmakers, how huge was the under? I mean, because it opened 51 and a half, and they were saying the first few days that the game was set, there wasn't an under ticket written. I mean, was it absolutely massive?
It was massive for us. Massive.
It was the game.
It was
We
marginal.
talked about it when we did the show last week. Like the story wasn't the line; it was the total, and it was huge. And then it came, the under money came. We were taking 6 figures to it. We took a couple times. It was still huge.
You took it all at like 54 or
We took it at 54. We took it at 53.
oh yeah, yeah.
And didn't move it.
Yep.
As we talk about what moves a line, we took $100,000 bet. We didn't move a line.
Overs.
No, under.
Yeah,
Under.
under. Yeah, this is under.
We didn't move it.
Yeah.
We didn't no need to go to 52 and a half.
No.
It was one guy
You were
betting
plenty.
on the
You were
under.
plenty heavy the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of, it's not Wednesday and it's not, Sam Houston State. When you take a dime on that, you
Yeah.
move it 2 fucking points.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's probably the only bet you're going to take.
That's it.
Super Bowl, you take a 6-figure wager, you don't move it. You take a $500,000 wager, you don't move it.
Yep.
So, it's just one of those discussions that you kind of either sit back and watch and observe, and there's no one answer. You don't. What do you take to move a number? Can't give you the answer.
I also thought it was fascinating that MGM's game was made by 4 or 5 different people. That's it.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the entire makeup, all the parties they had, all the attendance, and 4 or 5 people are the difference in their ledger.
oh
That's tremendous.
yeah. It's
1%ers.
like the elitist. The guy probably hit a jackpot. The guy probably hit a jackpot and walked over and wanted to bet the game for $1 million.
I've
and
seen it
won
happen.
First half,
And they
I
got
know.
Mattress Mac, so
Yeah,
Yeah, Mattress
gotta
Mac
fade
was
him.
involved,
Mattress
yeah.
Mac still somehow got a plus 120.
Yeah, they moved the line for him.
Unbelievable.
Talk about unethical. I don't know if I can bring that up.
Yeah, you could say
I don't know
it.
if I
There's a
can.
lot of things. That
Yeah.
are
I'm kind of
being
whispering
questioned.
it, but
let's
you
move
can't
on.
whisper on the radio. I think.
Let's
Kinda hear
move
all
on.
this shit.
Let's move on, please.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we move on?
Well, I don't know if you listened to the podcast last week. We gave out a bunch of prop bets. We pretty much nailed them all. That was a pretty good result. For the books in general, I think you'll see the results. They'll be released today. Nevada books did well. The rest of the country is still trying to figure it out. And we'll just leave it at that.
I like that Rhode Island did better with less volume because the Pats weren't involved.
Yeah.
Oh man, the Pats. I forgot about them.
You know what that means? Football season is over.
Well, it's not
Incorrect.
Yeah, definitely not correct.
XFL flying through.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
pump the brakes. What are you doing? We just went over it like 30 minutes
I
ago.
know. I know.
Oh, you want
Breaking news.
No.
My bad.
Breaking news.
Sorry, Dave.
Nevada Gaming Control numbers are here.
Okay.
154 million in wagers.
Okay.
Beats last year, does not beat 18, which was 158.
Right.
The win was 18,700,000, up 12%.
Yeah.
Never ends.
Yep.
It's printing money.
It was. Speaking of printing money, it's basketball season.
It's time.
You want to go? I mean, what are you guys taking away from the XFL? Let's just ask that question real quick. I mean, you guys,
I'm betting it. I'm watching it. I'm doing all of it.
are you
Yeah,
interested in it?
yeah, I have
Are
to
you
s- I have
interested
to stay
watch it?
engaged.
Not at all. I mean, Reynolds is shaking his head. I'm with Reynolds.
You're a company man.
No, I feel like this is.
Oh.
I think they're just more
Vince.
prepared for like this season than obviously the AAF was kind of just thrown together. But I just need to be more engaged into something like this.
I think, just after listening to Adam and listening to you, because you always make me think, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to give it more of a chance than I did the AAF. The AAF, I didn't realize.
See, I was
like
still
this.
watching the AAF.
Oh, we went
when
to a
they shut
game.
it down.
You were?
Yeah. Are you talking about him watching it?
Either one of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ugh.
because there was nothing
I
else
didn't-
on. Like,
Well,
what else
and
is
it's
there
football.
on?
It is
Yeah, I
football.
guess.
I mean,
it is
yeah.
football, but my God.
If I have the
don't know.
choice between the Dragons, Roughnecks, or Drexel and Seton
De-
Hall,
Delaware. You want
it's on sound.
Delaware's
XFL's
pretty
on
good.
sound.
Zero chance. I'm skipping a Delaware game for anybody. XFL's on sound.
The extra point thing has me intrigued. There's
Yeah, it
no
should be
kicking.
good.
Yeah, no kicking.
All the rules are going to make the product better because of like we talked about, the talent isn't good. We all
Yeah.
know this,
Right.
and
Right.
that's the key thing to realize. I mean, it's not the NFL, but
Well, it's if the
could use a break
defense
from that.
the defense can gain points, like because there's 3 different levels of where you can score. It's like 1, 2, and 3 from the 2, the 5,
2-yard
and the 10.
line, extra point
Yeah,
is
2,
worth
yeah,
a point.
yep.
Right.
5-yard line is worth 2,
And
and
the
the
10 is-
10-yard line is worth 3.
So if
you
the
get
def-
one play.
Yeah, if the defense scores, they get to score that amount
Yeah.
if they take it back
Yeah.
to the house,
Yeah.
which is because I read about all the rules I think like 2 days ago, but that under 2-minute warning where the clock stops on all the plays
Yes, it's going to be great.
is unreal. Yeah,
The NFL will be watching closely.
yes,
and you can't run the clock out if you don't.
Correct.
You can't run
that's
the
one
clock
of my
out.
all-time favorites.
That's
How is
fantastic.
that? It's
Yes.
insane.
Yeah.
It's dumb. Like then the whole like taking a knee thing is the most ridiculous thing. in
I
all
think
football.
so too. I don't think
It's
I,
this
I started
physical,
to think-
manly game, and then you can just go, I'm gonna just
Yeah.
tuck back and run the clock.
Like the
get
voice.
out of here.
Well, no,
Good effect.
no. I
Yeah.
mean, they weren't doing it until that fucking play with the Giants and Herm Edwards. I don't know if.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when they returned the
miracle.
Yeah.
That on
Yeah.
that.
Joe
I-
Pisarcik.
right, and I feel like
Yep.
that was like the moment where like, okay, let's not fucking run.
Let's not do that
Let's not.
again.
Wait, any other chance to not give the ball up? Let's like do the other. Mahomes running back 50 yards
Oh,
to end the game.
unreal,
Yeah,
man.
so
So
it
you guys
ties in
put
so
up
well.
like odds and season wins and shit.
Yeah. Hmm?
Who's the favorite?
Well, last I saw when I worked yesterday, or no,
Renegades.
Sunday.
Renegades. Is still
no, the
favorite.
Vipers.
Oh, Vipers?
Tampa
Vipers
Bay
were
Vipers.
favored. Yeah,
Okay.
I thought
we
you had
had-
Renegades at 2.5 to 1. No.
No, we
Maybe
have
not.
them at 3,
Okay.
and then the Vipers were I think 250 and got bet, so we moved them to plus 175.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't technically agree. We had a bunch of discussions about this of who should be favored and all that stuff. I had them a lot lower than the majority of people. So
Wow. Okay.
we'll see what happens. But
Hey, apart from the betting, do you guys feel that the potential for a farm system for the NFL is here? If this thing
they've
can,
always needed one.
Yeah.
That's
well,
what I
mean,
mean.
the AAF
Yeah.
was
if this thing
was the
can
big deal.
if this thing can sustain itself for a few seasons, I mean, the big if, because we've seen this before, but there's obviously going to be some talented guys.
My thing is like you're going to get young guys who can't quite make it in the league get reps, and reps are the most important thing you can get. And if you're going against other grown men, it's a whole lot different than playing in college, no matter what the talent level is. And so I feel like the NFL has always needed this, and you see these injuries that happen in the NFL. This is where the backups will be a lot better that have had, consistent, like say they played in the XFL for 2 years and now they made the team and now they're a backup. When they come in, they might actually be good at that point.
And gives them more exposure than just being a practice player
Right.
on
Yeah.
the practice squad.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a true farm system like, baseball.
No,
relationship is.
I
It
think
won't
it'd
be
take a
anything like
long
that.
time to get to that level. But
think-
I'm just
right.
saying that there'll be players that I think can make a jump
A name,
because eventually just getting to play at like 22, 23 years of age and start is a big deal. It's much better than playing on the practice squad.
Absolutely. All right. It's basketball season.
Sure.
Um,
You been watching any, or what's going on?
yeah. Well, no. I mean, basketball. I mean, NBA is
No.
fantastic. So that's why we got to talk
Don't
about
we want
NBA
to broaden our
first.
listener base? You guys
Yeah.
poo-poo college basketball every week. People are going to say fuck you like they say fuck me in the emails.
The same people.
I'm locked into college
that are-
basketball every day.
They're the ones not calling you. The
Can you
college
guys step
basketball
out?
fans.
Mo and I will just take the college basketball.
wait.
AB and I are gonna do a.
I'll
quick
send you down the
NBA
street to
take.
Dunkin' Donuts.
That's
And then we're
perfect
gonna do
because
that,
it'll
yeah.
just be like the sports book and how empty they'll be every
just-
Saturday.
for the next February.
27 million people watch the Duke game. No one gives a fuck.
Right? That's it. There you go. NBA. Trade deadline's Thursday. Do you expect anything to happen?
Yeah, there'll be some moves for sure.
Capella.
Yeah, Capella's one.
D'Angelo
I know
Russell to the
Gordon's been
Wolves.
talked about. D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
Any shockers, you think?
I don't think so anymore. The writers, for the most part, have a pretty good pulse of what they're talking about in the back rooms.
Just
So,
follow Wojo.
Yeah, pretty much. Him and Shams. That's all you need.
Oh,
to follow.
Shammies.
Yeah.
No one calls him that.
I don't think anything betting
Yeah, nobody calls
impact wise. I don't think
No,
it's gonna.
there's
It's, gonna,
nothing-
it's not going to
yeah,
affect any
there's
of the
nothing-
top.
Yeah.
We're just past the halfway point, pretty much in the NBA, with the deadline coming Thursday. Is the East literally just jockeying for position now? I mean, the Sixers are on a little downswing, but the top 6, 7 spots are pretty much taken.
Yeah.
It looks like to me. Toronto, Boston, Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Indiana, Miami. Orlando's going to challenge for a spot, maybe. I can't bury the Wizards yet completely, but they're pretty much buried.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see anything happening in the East. You know,
Wait, how many teams is it? 3, like actual good teams in the East, or is there 4? I don't.
Are we ready to say the Raptors are good? I mean,
Yeah.
you can say it now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They've been on a run, dude.
I feel like
So,
the Raptors are good.
Yeah.
I think they're good.
They're playing at
They're
a
playing with the chip.
7-20 clip, 72%,
Yeah.
Yeah.
36-14.
I know.
Toronto's
It's crazy. I thought they were going to make a bunch of trades because I didn't think they were going to make
That-
this kind of a run.
they're
and
buyers.
Siakam
That-
went up to the 1 spot, and he's
All-star.
He's an all-star.
Yeah.
So there you go. I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see what the Pacers got with Oladipo back. I think they're going to be legitimate.
Coming up.
I think the style of play will give the other teams in the East problems. So, I mean, it's like them, Celtics, Raptors, and Bucks. I mean,
Discounting the Heat.
Yeah, they're terrible on the road,
They
man.
are really
and I think
bad
when they
on the
play
road.
a really good team, they don't.
12-12 on the season on the road.
Yeah.
I really don't like Jimmy Butler. I just
It's
think
not
he's
that
smug.
bad.
I hate his personality. I know he can play.
I love
Dubs.
Jimmy Butler.
I do like Jimmy too. I had to
I don't.
stand up for him a couple. He's just as good as Paul George. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
You think so?
Not as good. I can't go over this again.
Okay.
I can't because it seems like I'm back and forth. But Butler's right there as a 2 guard with like a lot of the guys in the league.
He's got a shitty attitude.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, that's just kind of how he came up, you know. But he's a good guy. I've seen him. He's got a good personality though. But it just seems like it on the court that he's not that good of a
Yeah.
teamate. I guess. I don't
Kind of
know.
like Westbrook in a way.
maybe. I don't know.
Some guys just got an edge, man.
Yeah,
That's
smug.
just how they
Yeah,
play.
yeah, yeah.
That's just how they play.
Yeah, well,
Oh.
Yeah,
we just.
I
yeah.
agree. No, yeah, it's an edge. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Edge in the West. It's Lakers. Obviously won.
They ain't winning nothing.
No.
I'm saying it right now.
That's
This
it?
team is soft.
LeBron-
They lost a home game
LeBron doesn't
on the
win.
night Kobe. Like
LeBron doesn't
they're
score no
honoring
goddamn
Kobe.
points, and my man is ripping.
Oh, they're done.
That's
Finished.
crazy.
Get them out,
2 games. That's crazy.
How about the performance by?
Should go back to
Dang.
no.
I mean,
dude.
what is?
He might have got the torch from Kobe somehow.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? You seen this run this
That
guy's
is
his
on?
like-
dog.
and it's video game stuff out
Oh.
there.
He's shooting it from 40 feet.
Yeah.
He
No,
just-
he's a
boom.
dog.
He can
He's
shoot
a,
it from wherever.
he's a dog, man.
know who-
like he's
Yeah.
for real. This,
You know who
this
did a
guy's
little of that
sick.
last night was Trey Young. Did you see those highlights?
I did not.
Oh, Trae
but
Young's
he's
filthy.
33
Yeah,
and
yeah,
34
fantastic.
feet. I mean,
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Trae Young's filthy.
That's my guy.
Portland's 23 and 27, fellas. They making the playoffs?
I think Portland's going to
23
get
and
in.
27. I mean,
Out of the spot right now.
They're going to get in. Blazers will be
with
in.
the way Lillard's playing, I would be shocked if they don't find a way in somehow.
Are they going to make a trade? Like, what's going on?
I don't know. I
like
heard
it's a big
Love
deal.
stands, so I thought that was the guy they were going to try to get.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So,
don't know.
Is he still good?
I think
Good
Glover's
enough.
Yeah.
good enough on a team like
and
that.
his
he would be good.
size
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
sure.
gonna get you
Easy
boards.
rebounds.
Yeah.
Good defender.
Yeah.
I don't know.
works hard.
Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Jazz, Rockets, Mavericks. Those are pretty much the
Just
6
send
spots.
the trophy to L.A. to the Clippers.
I'm getting so tired
I'm
of
just
the
going to say
I'm getting tired of the Nuggets.
You say in or out.
It's not a good team.
Grizzlies, playoffs, in or out.
How many spots we got? 'Cause
Shit.
the Blazers
2.
are figuring
There's
it
2.
out.
There's
other
2
favorite,
spots.
My other favorite team.
I think Grizzlies get
I
in.
forgot.
Grizzlies
I like
in?
that team.
Grizzlies
Yeah, it's my
in?
favorite team.
Dylan Brooks, Finley Prep.
Fun
Oh,
to
yeah.
watch,
Love 'em.
boys.
Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Memphis gets in.
Yeah, it'd just be fun to watch them play the Lakers and knock them out of the playoffs.
OKC.
Oh, you're gonna eat your
Oh.
fucking words. No, you're gonna eat your damn. Oh man, I can't wait. It's just
Jaw
what's
just
today?
dunking on.
Today is February 4th.
Actually, no, never mind.
Write
If the
it
Grizzlies
down.
beat the Lakers, then
Oh my goodness.
Shut it
there's
all
gonna be a
down.
celebration.
Anthony Davis
There's gonna be a
leaves.
celebration somewhere.
Oh
Might
man,
have to go. OKC, in or out?
No way. With
In
the
right now.
three
Are
guards?
they a
In
6 right now? Or
30
5?
and 20. They're 7.
They're 7.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't do it.
I think Grizzlies and Blazers are the 7-8 somehow.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay,
man,
so-
just the way
okay,
Lillard's
okay, so yeah.
playing is crazy. And I think they're supposed to get Nurkic back in after the All-Star break at some
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when they get him back, they're a different team.
So San
3
Antonio
seed.
out.
Oh, they're
4
done.
seed.
Done.
They're done. Yeah.
And
That's a
we
team
could
that I thought wouldn't surprise to see a trade go down.
we can stop with the Pelicans. They're not making the playoffs.
Probably not.
I'd want to see him in though.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
yeah. I would
fun.
want to. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely want to. I want to see him in. but-
Zion is it's drawing a lot of action. I mean,
Oh,
every
I
time it's
know.
on,
it's crazy.
it's the most bet on game every day.
Yeah,
Whenever Zion is on, the Pelicans game has the most action.
that's makes sense.
They keep betting them. They're not covering, but like
They're still getting down.
Sunday, that game against the Rockets, man, we handled a ton of money on Super Bowl Sunday. We need the Rockets, but that's it for the NBA. We got to do it.
You got to anchor it.
We got 5 minutes. College basketball.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just prep it with this: the top 25 poll,
Yeah.
top 4 teams are the only ones not to change this week. It's Baylor, Gonzaga, Kansas, San Diego State's 23-0.
Can't lose.
But it feels like it's
Nonetheless,
settled down. The upsets and such. It feels
It-
like it's
yeah.
kind of
It has.
It's
No,
paused.
100%.
It's
Yeah.
paused a bit.
And like in conference, like it's beginning to be. It's a big deal for these teams now. So I mean, like,
Right.
there's what is an upset at this point? Like in conference game, I mean, like
Do you
not really
know
much of a
which
deal.
conference has the most teams in the top 25?
Got to be the Big Ten.
The Big Ten has 5 teams.
They could send 10 or 11 teams to the tournament.
It's ridiculous, but
Yes.
they're so they're all mediocre.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
oversaturated,
so
mediocre teams.
The
yeah.
ones, the top, the 5 in the top 25 are Maryland, Michigan State, Iowa, Illinois, and Penn State.
Yeah,
Penn State is 22nd in the country.
they got some pretty decent wins.
Would any one of those teams, if you had 100 right now, would you bet to win the national championship right now?
Possibly Izzo.
Yeah,
Just because.
It
Just
has to be-
because.
yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
Michigan. I just had a conversation with someone about Michigan State.
But really, you wouldn't consider any of the other teams.
I couldn't do it.
Now,
No way.
Yeah,
That's
to
how
make a run.
hard this is.
Kansas is the best team in that conference if they were in that conference.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
it just, like you said, it's a bunch of mediocre teams.
Yeah.
How about the Pac-12? They just all
Well-
beat each other.
So I was going to get to that in a minute here. I'll jump to it now because you said it. The Pac-12 has 3 teams in the top 25: Oregon, Arizona, Colorado.
Yeah.
You want a piece of them to win the national championship? I wouldn't even take a piece of them to win the Pac-12 championship right now.
Oh man,
It's got to be one of those 3, but maybe
No,
not.
USC could get on a roll.
It
Yeah.
easily
You know.
win.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, how the hell do you get? Who's a good Pac-12?
UCLA's won the last 4 out of 5. Mick
Stanford
Cronin
beats
they're
Oregon
putting,
last
they're putting
week.
it together.
It's crazy.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
You guys want to remind everybody the text I sent you on Saturday about the Arizona State game? Or
Oh,
should we-
yeah, no,
Should we just
simple.
gloss over it?
No, I mean I've
What was it? I don't
agreed on
remember.
both of them.
I told you that after Hurley loses, they come back and they usually
Yeah, but
play
there
well.
was not a
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
not a
Sparky,
disagreement.
Sparky.
There was not a disagreement. There was it was an agreement.
I'm just looking for an attaboy.
Yeah, no, duly noted means I like it. I'm like, this
How
is a good
about-
play.
Attaboy, fuck you. We just cover both bases there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
done deal.
Yeah.
The Big East has 4 teams. 4 teams in the top 25.
I have one of them.
Villanova, Seton Hall, Creighton, and Butler. You have a piece of one of those?
Seton Hall is the one I have.
Yeah, you do.
40-1.
Ooh.
I know. I need it bad, man. I'm coming back for them.
We need them to just win the Big East. That would be really good. They need to be a higher seed than like 5.
Yeah. Which,
we
I mean,
we
they
need them up
finally-
there. 4 or 5. They're
yeah,
right
that's
now.
huge. What are they right now? They're a 5 right now.
They're, I would think.
Yeah.
They got to be a 5.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. The ACC. The ACC.
I think this one's more
Is
brutal than
only-
the Big Ten deal.
It's
3.
Louisville, Duke, and Florida State.
That's it.
Who the hell else?
That's it. That's all we got.
That's it.
You know, that's really all we
The
got.
ACC has completely blown up.
Yeah, I don't like. I guess people make a big deal about the Big Ten getting like 11 in, but the ACC getting 3 in is a mockery of basketball.
I mean, I guess Virginia, Syracuse, and Pitt are going to entertain.
I think the Orange men might
They're going to find a way in.
somehow, man.
But holy shit, it's the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah,
3 teams.
North Carolina. Jeez, it's
Yeah.
what a horror story.
yeah.
Dude,
They don't.
Duke plays North Carolina this weekend, Saturday, and really, you want to talk about a game nobody gives a shit? And that game has been legendary for years.
And you
Oh,
watch
yeah.
the pressers now with Roy Williams.
Oh, he's done.
Yeah.
And
He's hurt. He's been hurt for at least like 2
like,
months.
you could
man.
see the pain.
Yeah. No,
It hurts.
He is fucking
It hurts
hurt,
to
yeah.
watch. It hurts to watch. It hurts to watch the game sometimes, just period.
Oh my God.
But, SEC is the last conference I got here.
Sure.
It's the 3 teams: Auburn, Kentucky, LSU, and that's it. I mean,
Arkansas might have a shot, man. Mississippi
South
State.
Carolina, Florida, and Mississippi State are
Yeah,
the maybes.
Yeah, Gators.
Tennessee, no shot.
I think Gators, Arkansas, and
Alabama.
Mississippi State are within the teams that might get in. Those are some pretty good teams.
The last question I have before we move on, we got about a minute left of available time to talk college basketball. The Atlantic 10, Dayton,
Of course.
number 1 seed.
Flyers. Oh, man.
Can they be?
I don't know.
They can be.
Yeah, they
They
probably
keep
could.
winning, win their conference tournament.
Who's their coach?
Archie.
No,
No,
he
not
went
Archie.
to Indiana.
Yeah. I forgot who their coach
Miller.
was.
Didn't he go to Indiana?
Yeah, he's with Indiana.
It's the other Miller.
No.
Yeah, Sean Miller's brother.
No.
That's Archie.
He's gone.
He left Dayton and went to Indiana.
That's a fine.
Oh,
No,
shit.
No, I'm kidding.
Sorry for our listeners in Dayton.
No, wait.
That goes to show you. I mean, I thought he was still the coach.
Elitist college basketball.
I can't believe
ignorance.
the turnover on them being so good after him leaving. I thought it would take a little bit longer because they were like perennial like Sweet 16 team. You know, I think they made it to Elite 8 with Miller too.
How about Zags? They can be number 1
Yeah, without question.
from the West Coast Conference.
I hate
And
them.
can San Diego State out of the Mountain West. I mean, these are 3 lower tier conferences that I purposely
Dayton
wrote
and
down.
San Diego State cannot both be one. You know, like,
No?
no, it can't be.
San Diego State runs a table. They can't. They have to be a
Yeah,
1.
yeah. I
And if
honestly,
Dayton doesn't lose another game, how can they not be a 1?
I don't know, with the loss. Like, well, that's going to be the difference is the loss that Dayton has. And that's to Baylor, who's the number 1 team, I guess. Yeah, the number 1 team in the nation.
And that was the conference.
Or
we
was it?
didn't
No,
mention.
no.
Baylor.
They
has been
lost to
number
Baylor.
1.
Oh, they lost to Colorado, too. That's right. Yeah, they lost to Colorado.
The coach at Dayton is
Oh, no, no,
Anthony
they beat
Grant.
Colorado.
Who?
Anthony Grant.
Thank you.
He was at Alabama before this and then VCU before that.
Nice. All right.
Havoc defense.
That'll wrap up the NCAA basketball talk. Any comment from you, Reynolds, on UFC coming up this weekend? The card, and there's no chance Jones loses, right or wrong.
Well, there's always a chance, man.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not likely
Not this
at all.
one.
Yeah, but there's always a chance if he gets cracked by this kid Reyes. But this card sucks. It sucked even more than the UFC 246 a month ago. The most interesting fight is Dan Ige and Mirsad Bektic, which no one really cares about other than me and the guys that coach those guys.
Okay.
So
That line is actually very competitive, anywhere between minus 125 and 145.
What, Bektic favored? I didn't
Yes.
look at this.
Yes.
Yeah, I would play Ige there if you
Okay.
are going to play that, just because I think Bektic is a little bit overvalued at this point in time now, even after the losses to what I think Darren Elkins just recently got him, and there's another loss in there that I can't remember off the top of my head. But I mean, like I said, this card is it's brutal.
What's the main event? What's the main?
Jones and Dominic Reyes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
Minus 450 to 475 range. This is one of those things.
This one's in Houston.
in Houston, Texas.
H-Town.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
H-Town.
H-Town.
Dynamite drop in, money.
Worth laying the price. I mean, even if you put it in a parlay with someone else.
Number one, I would never bet parlays ever in my life.
Right, absolutely.
I have a friend that only bets parlays with heavy favorites, and he swears, he's like, oh, you get great value on the return, but then he ends up pissed off when a guy like Will Brooks loses as like a $4 favorite or something like that. I can't stand losing that way. I would rather just take my lumps with betting Cerrone to show up and then not having it happen.
Okay.
But to me, no, I don't bet this fight. Like, I'm sure AB.
I mean, if you were to bet it, you would only bet Jones. You can't bet the other guy. You think he can win?
No, I don't. I don't think he has. He's got good power, but I mean, he knocked out Chris Weidman, who's a middleweight with a bad jaw. So really, how impressive is that? And he looks sluggish. And I think it was the Volkan Ozdemir fight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that to me feels like what his level is that he's right there at the top of the light heavyweights, but we're talking about fighting like the all-time.
The man.
The
all-time best, probably. I mean,
somebody asked me recently, like, do you think any light heavyweight can get him? And I was like, really? I mean, anybody can be gotten on any day, but from this crop, no, I don't. I think your best chance to see John Jones lose is at heavyweight to Stipe.
Okay.
And I think he would beat Stipe.
Yeah, I think he beats Stipe too.
Yeah.
John Jones he's the greatest. That's all there is to it.
Right.
He beats everybody at every level. It doesn't matter what you try to do to him, really.
The most interesting fight you can make for this guy right now is the rematch with Thiago Santos, because he respected Santos's power so much that even on one leg, that still went to a split decision.
Do you feel, though, I don't think he wanted to take him down. Like, I think that was the whole thing with him. It was an ego thing with John.
Yeah, John Jones' whole thing has ever been, I'm going to beat you where you're strongest.
Right.
But he was
he could have just shot on him and taken him right down and probably.
But he was so
him.
fearful of that power that he wasn't even engaging much like he was. It was like watching Shevchenko and Carmouche.
Yeah.
It's like this little tit-for-tat thing.
Yeah.
And he damn near gave the fight away, which, by the way, that's a fight on the co-main event, Shevchenko and Shakagian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't bet against Shevchenko, but if that thing's ugly, Shakagian's live. Because if you lose a point fight like that, you can lose a split decision.
Yeah.
All right. That will table the talk for the UFC. I just wanted to get that in there. Card sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to the NXT show in town, so I won't even be watching it this weekend.
Where's that?
That's what is that? The Pearl, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I didn't even realize until this weekend. I was like, oh, that's this weekend?
That's this weekend. All right. Last piece of business. Anything else? I mean, Lance, that's a big shout out right there.
Yeah.
Big teamer. 16 dimes.
Yeah, that was
pretty nice.
Pretty it was funny cuz we jokingly brought it up because of the day that was had prior. He was like, I need to hit a grand slam. About to put in his 8-teamer. And
he wasn't talking about Denny's.
Yeah, I'm saying it was just such a ridiculous quote, and the fact that we even he got a chance to hedge it. I mean, the day was really good with college basketball that day. But yeah, it was just funny, Definitely something for a story like, for shit that we talk about, most definitely.
That is a story. Lastly, the NHC is this weekend, right?
At Bally's.
At Bally's.
They moved back to Bally's from Treasure Island.
For the listeners who don't know, that's the National
Handicapping Contest,
which is horse racing, spread out over multiple days.
Yeah, it's kind of like the World Series of Poker in that you have to win a qualifier in your area or win one online, and you sort of graduate up to get to this point.
Is our boy Sean in that?
He is.
Word.
He is in it. We're rooting for you, Sean. Hopefully we're going to get together, but apparently the deeper you go into this, the more intense it gets.
Oh, yeah, it's for serious money.
It's for serious money.
Yeah.
Is it just for one day or
2 days?
No.
Friday, Saturday.
2 day, yeah.
And there's both designated races and then your choice or optional races that you pick. And it's very, very intense for these guys. I mean, they're you're not looking for $5 and $6 winners. You're looking for diamonds in the rough where you can separate yourself from the others.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty
like HB does.
Yeah, of course.
Keep an eye on that. Thanks again to our guest, Adam Chernoff. He is at Adam Chernoff on Twitter, ADAMCHERNOFF. Great stories, Go back and listen to it if you haven't. Really interesting interview and a good follow on Twitter. And for the boys, I mean, that's about it, right? We can wrap this thing up.
Yeah, man.
All right.
My sorrows for
it's
whatever
over.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's done. Yeah.
Niners close.
It was a rough week from Sunday to Sunday. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It was.
But now we got a little bit of a break, at least during the week, and then college basketball weekends for the next 3 weekends.
Yeah.
Will be
Locked
grinding
in.
days.
Most definitely.
Ivy's on Friday is a nice break leading into Saturday.
Metro Atlantic, man. That's
and
the big
the
deal.
MAC, of course.
St.
yeah.
Peter's. That's my
Siena.
squad. That's my team. Dog. Canisius,
MAC
baby.
action.
Maris the Red Foxes.
Manhattan.
Oh, God.
Yeah, man.
All right.
The Jaspers.
Of
AB,
course.
anything on the way out, sir?
Of course.
No.
Excellent. That's the sign-off right there. That's sign. It's time to go. Reynolds, great job producing the show. I am Reynolds, 2305. Man, a few words, but always good ones. At %Berg, Alan Berg on Twitter. HB, on the way out. Anything?
I love you guys.
Fuck you. At Gaming
Real,
Today News right there.
Lockstep.
He's rolling. Bearish Bangers. Follow the Gaming Today. We got our own button, boys. We got our own button for the podcast on the site.
Upper right on the homepage.
Upper right on the homepage.
And you're going to stand alone
Oh,
because
yeah.
the bookie battle.
Shout out to Sports Handle, too, for putting us on that list.
Yeah, right?
That was dope,
Yes,
man.
thank
That
you, Brett
was-
Smiley.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Very kind.
That was incredible, man.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We appreciate that as well. And appreciate you, Mo. At He These Takes.
Yeah. Thanks,
You know,
man.
We'll be all right. The Niners, we'll get over that. I
Oh
mean,
no, we're
you know,
gonna crush it, man.
Yeah.
It'll be
Just get
fine.
on the Vipers this weekend, Mo.
That's it.
Follow Mo on
Sim-
Twitter. He'll
No,
have
we're-
it.
oh, yeah,
He'll
we're
have
gonna
the
do-
No, we
XFL,
missed the
right?
number on the. On
We already
New
got
York
smoked?
plus
Oh,
5.5. That was
really?
it's gone. Now it's 3.
Son of a.
I'm very.
I want to
upset.
fade DC just
Stop
because
this.
on
There's
justice.
XFL Sharps already?
Yeah,
Oh,
it begins.
it's happening.
The AAF
It's-
was some real things.
Oh, my
were
God.
happening. Like
Yeah.
Well,
Watch
those
the
line
line
moves.
moves.
were
No,
good.
the day of
Oh,
was
man.
unreal.
Wow.
Oh, it was out of control.
Oh.
Well, no one knew if anything was real until that happened.
Somebody knew, though, after that.
Oh my God, I was like, my God.
Watch the line moves.
Could an XFL game make it into weekend for winners?
I
Oh,
can't.
for
I would
sure.
assume yes.
Pay
I guarantee
attention.
it.
We'll tweet it out. Watch the line
Yeah,
moves.
we're gonna get on it.
Yeah.
We're gonna get on it.
My Twitter is at SportsBKConsig, Sportsbook Consigliere, Dave Sherapan. The show Twitter, which we're gaining followers, boys. It's slowly happening. It's grinding. And we got to
Little
just
bit.
keep doing it. Again, thank you to the listeners. And reach out via Twitter. We'll try to, talk about things you want to talk about. You have any questions, DMs are open as well. And if you DM me, I will answer. I mean, HB's waiting for a DM. Send him a goddamn message, please. Somebody blow up his DM on Gaming Today News.
Hit them up.
Makes me feel
Please.
good.
Yeah. That's it. Wrap it up. Thank you for listening. Today is February 4th. We will see you guys